This time around, we are doing a comparison video to showcase the differences a little time and effort can make. The first one that I'm drawing is going to be obviously the simplified version, just a swirl on top for the bun, and half triangles to showcase the updo. Some very, very simplified and identical hairlines and straight lines for the rest of the down hair. This is not what you want. This is a very cartooned version. If you're trying to attempt real looking hair, realistic looking hair, this is not the way to go. Way too easy. Yes, it is less time consuming. However, it's much less bang for your buck, I suppose you could say. Second version. This is what you're shooting for. If you want to start with the top bun again, you can see in the video that I'm starting with that curved aspect where everything gets tied together. Now I realize my hand's a little bit in the way for this, so I'm going to speed through that here shortly. But you'll notice that my lines are curving into that little top knot, and since I am working in pen, I'm focusing on my pressure and how light and dark I'm pressing to achieve the different values, because hair is all about values and trying to showcase where my highlights are. Now, the top knot is not entirely done yet, so I wouldn't call that finished, but I am going to move on. The hair that's going up into that knot is not going to be completely curved in a straight line like on the simplified version. This is going to have bumps and go in different directions. It needs values just like the top knot will. Some areas are going to be layered. You want to showcase that. The more you think about it, the better it's going to look in the end. You kind of want to work in chunks as you go. So I'm kind of chunking off or piecing off the different hair aspects as I'm working. So the really, really dark areas that I know I'm going to put a lot of value in, I am blocking off right now. Now you can do this in pencil as opposed to pen. It's going to be entirely up to you. I just knew I wanted to do it in a blue pen, so that's what I decided to work with. Okay, if I'm starting with the falling hair, there is going to be a little bit darker right next to where the hair is going up in that little updo, but I have to keep in mind that unlike my simplified version, the hair will be going in multiple areas and it will be layered, and especially since I'm doing a curly haired version, it will not all go in the same direction. It is very important to recognize that if you want to make realistic looking hair. Still think about the chunked aspects, so working in chunks. Some areas are going to be significantly darker. That's to help establish depth within the hair. So doing that with values, since I'm using a pen, it's all about the pressure. In those really, really light areas, I am barely touching the page at all. I have a lot of control as I'm working. Making sure to follow along your lines. You want to have a lot of confidence in your lines as you work. as you work also, you need to recognize that hair is all about direction. So some areas it might be looping to the left, some areas might be curving to the right, and your lines need to follow that. That's how you create movement within your hair. Okay? Pulling up, pulling down. I'm doing a lot of hatching as I move forward, even though I'm curving my lines. You can always go back and layer to create darker values. It's up to you. Skipping around the page is successful for me. And as you create those values, you have to think about your highlights. Now, you can kind of tell as my hair is starting to take shape that I am using the paper itself for a lot of my highlights. And that's very successful as long as I am careful with my transitions. I don't want to go from super, super dark to white. So that is what my very, very light aspects, so light pressure with my pen, is used for. As you work and watch the video, you'll probably notice that I'm using a lot of small lines, almost scratchy looking lines. And this is, I've found, been actually very successful simply because hair, generally speaking, unless it's extremely gelled, is not perfectly straight or perfectly in one direction. You tend to have flyaways, or that one or two pieces of hair, or all those strands of hair that are going places that you don't want them to go, or sticking out, or you didn't get them quite straightened or curled correctly, and they're just not cooperating. So having those slight imperfections actually makes your hair look even more realistic and ends up helping your piece be more successful. I did speed it up because at this point it's all going to be relatively similar to the opposite side that I had created. But it's good to keep in mind, and for me to point out, that as you work, you'll notice, or as you watch the video, you're going to notice that some of my lines I really darken, and that's going to be a very easy and a very successful way for you to create depth and that layered aspect within the hair. So keep that in mind as you work, and you don't have to have your hair look exactly like the way I'm drawing it. But it is a very easy, quick, and successful tool to use as you work. So really establishing those dark areas where hair layers in front of another, especially with curly hair, because it does create a lot of volume and depth within it, generally speaking. Alright, I'm getting very close to calling it and being done with our comparison video. Just adding in a few more values where I think they could be used. Remember to always curve your lines in the direction you want your hair to flow, and gradually adding in and layering in those different values. Work in chunks, curve your lines the direction you want your hair to go, and make sure you're spending time on this. Hair can be really a vocal point in your drawings if you do it successfully. And make sure you're focusing on your highlights, especially if you decide to work in something permanent like pen as opposed to pencil where you can erase your highlights. So paying attention to that. But we have a nice solid comparison video.